Okay, get this. What if a routine shot, one that many of us get at the local pharmacy, could actually help protect our brains from one of the most feared diseases out there? Well, that's the incredible possibility raised by a new study we're going to break down today. So what's all the buzz about? We're digging into a study from the journal Nature Medicine that's making some serious waves, and for a really good reason. It could, honestly, completely change how we think about protecting our brains.
And the main takeaway here? It's simple and, frankly, stunning. The study found a link between the new shingles vaccine and a significantly lower risk of being diagnosed with dementia. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. If this is a real cause and effect thing, we're talking about a monumental breakthrough for public health.
But that raises a huge question, right? How in the world could a vaccine for a skin rash possibly have an effect on the brain? Well, the answer might be hiding in a hunch that scientists have been chasing for decades about what could be a trigger for dementia. It's called the infection hypothesis. The whole idea is that the virus that gives you chickenpox as a kid, varicella zoster, it doesn't actually leave your body. Nope, it just lies dormant for decades. And the theory is, if that virus reactivates, it could be a contributing factor to the kind of damage we see in diseases like Alzheimer's.
And here's where the thinking gets really fascinating. What if those amyloid plaques we always talk about with Alzheimer's? What if they aren't just useless junk? This theory suggests they're actually a defense mechanism, like a sticky cage the brain builds to trap these invading viruses. So by preventing the virus from reactivating, the vaccine basically tells the brain, hey, you don't need to build these cages anymore. Cages that, eventually cause so much collateral damage.
It's a really compelling idea, but proving it? That's always been incredibly difficult. And that's because researchers have always run into this classic, huge scientific roadblock.
So this is the real challenge for the scientists. How do you know if it's actually the vaccine that's giving the protection or if it's something else entirely? I mean, people who get vaccinated might just be healthier in general, right? And that could make it look like the shot is doing all the heavy lifting. This is a well-known issue called the healthy vaccinee bias. Think about it. People who are proactive about getting their shots often eat better, they exercise more, they see their doctor more regularly. And this bias can really mess with the data, making a vaccine look more effective than it really is. Okay, so this is where the study gets really clever. To get around this bias, the researchers didn't have to design a brand new experiment. Instead, they were smart enough to find one that was already happening out in the real world. They used what's called a natural experiment. They found this one unique moment in public health history that let them compare two huge, very similar groups of people. And that's what helped them cancel out that tricky healthy vaccinee problem. So here's what happened. Back in October 2017, the US switched from an older shingles vaccine to a newer, much more effective one. And this created the perfect setup. Researchers could compare the huge group of people who got vaccinated just before the switch with the group that got it right after. Since both groups were likely very similar in their health habits, the only big difference was the vaccine itself. It's a brilliant setup. So what did this unique experiment actually show? Well, the results, they build a really powerful case for the vaccine having a protective effect on the brain. The numbers are pretty striking. The people who got the new recombinant vaccine had a 17% increase in the amount of time they lived free from a dementia diagnosis over the next 6 years. That's compared to the folks who got the older vaccine. 17%! And to put that into more personal, human terms, for people who did eventually develop dementia, this translated to, on average, 164 extra days lived without that diagnosis. That's nearly half a year. I mean, that is a truly meaningful delay. And when they dug into the data, they saw this protective effect in both men and women. But here's what's super interesting. The effect was significantly stronger in women. They saw a 22% increase in diagnosis-free time compared to 13% for men. So all of this leads to the next big question. If this protective effect is real, how is it actually working? Like, what's happening inside our bodies to make this happen? Right now, scientists are exploring two main ideas. The first one is that the vaccine simply stops the shingles virus from waking up again. This prevents it from causing these chronic, low-grade fires of inflammation in the brain that can damage nerve cells over time. The second idea goes back to that whole amyloid cage theory. By stopping the virus, the vaccine tells the brain it can stand down, It doesn't need to overproduce all that amyloid waste that just gums up the works. Now, it's important to understand this one nuance. The vaccine may not be a silver bullet cure. The data seems to suggest it might be pushing back the clock on dementia's onset, delaying it rather than preventing it completely. But honestly, even just delaying this devastating disease by months or years would be a massive, massive victory.
So, the bottom line is, this study provides a really powerful reason to do a large-scale randomized clinical trial to confirm all this. And it leaves us with a truly provocative thought. What if one of the most effective tools in the fight against dementia isn't some futuristic, super expensive new drug, but a common vaccine that's already available at our local pharmacy?